but I feel like we're going to see one of those options. Let's get it on. I'm excited for this one because I think it's so damn difficult to figure out who's going to win it and who's the favorite even. In the top right side, we are looking at the main base of the man who's made out of raw German steel and twisted sex appeal, GunGFuBanDa.
And playing for Team Cascade and has done for a little bit of time now. And spawning over in the bottom left-hand side, playing for Team Aggo, it is Elazer.
While we were in the lobby, I took a look at their profiles, and it's actually quite crazy to see that GunGFu has almost 300 MMR more on his main account than Elazer has. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to win the best of 3, right? We both know that. But it is a little telling, man. GunGFu hasn't just done well on the ladder, but he's also done well in those European Pro Tour weeklies on the Monday evening. And I absolutely think he has the skills to get a W here, which in a way would be surprising, but then if you go over the facts, it's not surprising. But on the other hand, Elazer is the more accomplished player and often has deeper runs in tournaments. I don't know, man. I'm really 50-50 on this one, and it just brings a smile to my face because I can't wait to see who's going to win it.
When you bring up that Elazer on his account is 6.5/6.6k, I don't know what he is on a barcode, but barcodes. But the fact that GunGFu is as high as he is, like 6.8k, that just goes to show how times are changing, because I like when it comes to the top 4 in Europe or top 5 even, I think a lot of people have the same names keep cropping up, like Clem, Cyril, Raynor, and then maybe Hero Marine and Showtime. But then very often it's like, okay, Elazer, right? Like he sits very comfortably, maybe about 6th place. But the fact that he will be challenged and very closely challenged by a lot of players these days, it is not so set in stone at all. And just looking at that MMR, it absolutely shows it.
Yeah, I feel like the top 8 for a little while was kind of set. You know, you have the big 3, then obviously you've got Gabe, you've got Showtime, and then I think Elazer, Lambo, and Thermal. That just makes a nice top 8, right? All of the races are represented, but I don't think it's a foregone conclusion at all this season. I have no idea what to expect of Mark at this point. We've got Max Pax in the mix, who has truly shown us that he can duke it out with the very best, and he can take some of the bigger names down. And then Elazer is a bit unpredictable. You know, he doesn't like it when we say that. He's like, no, I'm just good, you know, and I've been good for a while. But last year didn't always work out, especially in summer. Like him losing in the group stage was just a massive upset. And I'm sure that he has learned from that and he wants to prevent that from happening. He should make top 4 in this group, but I have no idea if it's like a solid top 2 or barely scraping into the top 4.
No, I'm with you entirely. This Adept getting a little bit of a hull damage done to it, but does escape, gets a little bit of a scout off as well, just to see that no weird shenanigans are going off. You see that your opponent is getting Ling speed, which is very normal, very standard, and he is opting for a Void Ray in the back of his base. Kind of a tricky spot to scout, but I mean, the Void Ray will reveal itself, and then it comes down to what does Elazer do with the info that he has when he sees it?
I mean, Elazer is known for his overlords, but he's definitely not known for overlord scouting. Let's be real now. So actually, I don't know.
He really doesn't scout a lot. Like, you can watch so many Elazer games. It's like, yeah, he's as blind as a bat. Like, he will play StarCraft like that.
He loves to produce overlords, and he hates being supply blocked, and he hates it so much that he doesn't want to sacrifice a single overlord. Now, this overlord, in a way, is still going to scout the fact that this was a Stargate opening. Wow, that is such an early fleet beacon. What the hell? I expected maybe like Stargate, Robo into second Stargate, and we're going to build a lot of cannons and batteries and go into Void Ray Disruptor and take the game from there. Maybe once GunGFu switches it up and he goes Stargate into a Twilight Council. If you'd have told me we're going to see a pre-4-minute fleet beacon, I would have been like, I mean, I highly doubt that's the thing. Apparently, that's the thing. These Adepts are going to get surrounded, though. One Adept should fall. Maybe both Adepts go down, actually. Yes, that's a solid pickup for Elazer.
That was really weird Adept movement. They were like shading back to the wall, which I was like, okay, that's really smart, like checking for these links on the map. And then they moved out, like as if they could take on that fight. It was just a little bit weird by GunGFu. This Void Ray is on the other side of the map. Won't get a drone kill. Nice morph by Elazer, but all things said and done, this is definitely a weird build by GunGFu, but hey, I like it, man. I like it when PvZ shows itself to be a different cake altogether.
Yeah, I think SOS was the first one to do that back then, right? On Purity and Industry against either Dark or Rogue, where it's like 2 carriers, they start harassing, and then you can potentially follow it up with 1,000,000 adepts with resonating glaives, because obviously Zerg players are like, oh no, the super early carriers, we need Queens and we need Aspire, and they start building Corruptors, and none of those things are very good against adepts, of course, but yeah, you don't see it super often. I kind of wonder if GunGFu is going to make carrier number 3 and 4. He did not start +1 air weapons. But I also think a build like this is a little crazy because Elazer loves to be aggressive in the mid game with a crap ton of queens. We're already going up to 8. I don't know how I feel about it, Ben, but let's see how it plays out.
Yeah, I'm definitely surprised he hasn't started air weapons yet. Like when I'm playing these air builds, Kev, you can bet your bottom dollar I'll be having you in my ear being like, oh, +1, it's so odd. And it starts right away. These carriers are out on the map. I don't know if they've been scouted yet. I think that Ling took a little bit of a hit there from the Adept or from the Interceptor.
Infestation
But we'll see more
pit
queens being
already.
produced.
What do you make of the infestation pit? Is Elazer gonna rush up to Hive, potentially get Vipers, or does he want to play Roach Queen Swarm Host?
I'm thinking that maybe initially it was for the Swarm Host, but as this is playing out, it's got to be for tier 3, right? I think almost certainly.
Well, the carriers are going to show up in the main base. I have seen Protoss players sometimes lose a carrier in these situations. That should never happen. Sure, Spore Crawlers are annoying, Queens are annoying, but a carrier is, let's say, has a lot of HP. You should not lose a carrier. We're going to try to take out a Queen. That's not going to work out either. So far, so good, I think, for Elazer. He's not struggling in dealing with this. And one of the downsides of the opening of GunGFu is that obviously it all takes a little while before this truly gets going, right? Look at the amount of freedom that Elazer has, and look at the amount of drones that the Polish Zerg has been able to get out. 86, few more on the way, plenty of Spore Crawlers. I like what GunGFu was doing there in the main. He attacked the rocks to get all the Interceptors out, and then he just moved immediately towards the main, so the Interceptors don't come out one by one, but all 16 Interceptors start shooting at a Queen. It's a cool idea, but when there are 10 Queens and 2 Spore Crawlers, yeah, it doesn't really cut it.
This queen count, by the way, is getting absolutely atrocious. Like, we've got 4 more queens in production. There's already 14. Yeah, it's ridiculous. You know, you very rarely see this amount of queens so early on, but like you said, Kev, he is actually switching things up behind this as well. He's going for the +1 ground weapons. He's actually getting charge, and he's getting, you know, the flux capacitor upgrade as well to make these void rays super damn quick.
I've never heard anyone call it the flux
capacitor. Well, I've watched a bit too much Avatar in my life. I swear there's something like that called it in that.
All right. Well, I'm more familiar with flux veins bands, but I know what you mean. So Elazer's got 17 queens. He's got 90 drones. That means he's only going to have like 75 actual army supply, which means we're going to have to be very aggressive with Corruptors and then maybe 1 or 2 Vipers. Just get in there, start abducting units, and even if you lose 3 or 4 Corruptors at a time trying to kill a carrier, that's going to be okay. Because you want to trade, right? You don't want to max out on 17 queens and 90 plus drones. Because then if GunGFu maxes out, well, guess what? His army is going to be way better than your army. And there is not much that Elazer can do. So as soon as the Vipers are out, I want to see Elazer get right in the mix and start looking for those abducts.
Yeah, because even though I like the situation that Elazer found himself in, like he was 70 drones versus 50 probes kind of thing, I'm not sure I'm liking it right now for him. Like this army of GunGFu is kind of hard to deal with, and okay, this is ambitious to say the least, because that's a lot of queens with a lot of energy. Even if he did kind of get it down, it would just heal.
And 1,000,000 Spore Crawlers there too. It's like Void Ray's getting a little too deep there, I think, behind the enemy lines. But at least what GunGFu is accomplishing is making sure that Elazer stays at home. Don't want to be too nitpicky, Ben, but I find the creep a little bit underwhelming for a man with 17 queens. I think that's fair to say.
More than fair to say, Kevin. Like, this is it's barely left his base at this point. The supply as well is very misleading. I like the addition of Ultras, though, because this amount of queens, I know they changed Transfuse a while ago to make it a heal and also a rejuve kind of effect. But Ultras against, well, what's going to be on the ground? Is it going to be a lot of Zealots? They're definitely going to munch those Zealots, especially with this amount of queens.
Yeah, it will all come down to the execution, but GunGfu already has a Twilight Council. We don't have a Templar Archives yet. Okay, it's about to finish up. Actually, sorry, I missed it on the production tab. Getting used to the new overlay, it's a bit different, you know? Sometimes things are in different spots. It will all come down to the feedback versus abduct thingy, right? Like, that little dance is going to be very important. If Elazer his Vipers just get feedback the first time he wants to be aggressive, I'm going to be really worried for him, because then he needs to go home, he needs to suck up more energy, and by the time that he can then fight, well, GunGfu is going to have an even more powerful army. GunGfu has been absolutely on the money when it comes to chrono boosting out air upgrades, as +2 is now already done, and he's got +3 on the way, 10 minutes into the game. It's not a new world record, Ben. I'm the proud holder of that world record, but it's pretty good.
I was about to say, I was thinking it as, like, just before you mentioned it. The fact that he was a little bit late on the +1, well, he's made
up for
more
it.
than, yeah, absolutely made up for it.
Yeah.
I love the fact that Elazer is using that high drone count now to just make a lot of static defense. Because I was looking at his army and I was like, even though it is scary and it's going to be hard for GunGfu to engage, with a lot of static defense and with, 90-ish drones, GunGfu's army is just getting better and better, whereas Elazer's wasn't. So nice choice by him.
And on top of that, obviously Elazer is a world-class StarCraft 2 player. I'm not going to sit here and say he can't play late game, because that's too much, right? But that's not really what I think Elazer is best at. I feel Elazer is best at just being a fast player in the early mid-game and hitting a couple of devastating timing attacks. But this game, he's just basically saying, all right, you're going to turtle, I'm going to turtle, and I'm going to try to win this game with Corruptors, Vipers, Queens, and Spore Crawlers. I don't know, man. I kind of favor GunGfu in games like this.
I favor GunGfu's position quite a lot, actually. Like, this is a lot of queens, but he's barely got any fodder as a laser. Like, that's it. That's all the links he has. There isn't, like, a huge amount of Bailings lying in wait for this ground army as well. Like, this is just a really, really high-tech Protoss army with super upgrades, by the way.
Yeah.
And you're trying to deal with it with a few Ultras and lots of Queenie boys. Like, I mean, even if you do kill all the air, the ground army is going to be very hard to deal with.
But it's going to be so damn hard to kill all the air, because 7 Void Rays, 6 carriers with +3 air weapons soon. The only mistake I think GunGfu can make is not attacking as soon as those upgrades finish up. Like, if we have +3, this is such a beautiful moment to fight, because the Corruptors only have 1 armor upgrade, right? So they are going to melt against the Void Rays. They're going to melt against the carriers. It'd be an absolute shame to just sit back forever and let the Zerg player catch up in those air upgrades.
It certainly would. It certainly would. I love that little outpost that GunGfu made, by the way, on the left side of the map. A pylon, a gateway, a cannon, and a shield battery, just to make sure that it's a little bit harder to deal with. What a nasty little run by.
Yeah, it's annoying, but that's about it, right?
Yeah.
That is kind of it. So GunGfu's just going to rebuild those buildings, and still not a whole lot happening. 13 minutes in, not too many units have gone down. Elazer did manage to get +2 now on his Corruptors, so that's obviously kind of nice. And we're already getting a couple of Brood Lords as one Immortal gets caught in the center. Then Immortal is going to go down. But I don't really understand why, GunGfu. Why are we chrono boosting out air upgrades the way we've done to then not put them to good use? I think it's a missed opportunity.
It's a super missed opportunity. It's kind of what we saw in the Vanya game, right? Like, why get something so fast if you're just not going to use it? These Ultras are trying to make some damage done, but they're kind of blocking each other pretty badly here. And GunGfu, he's having none of it. He's on the attack now.
And I like it. And I think couple Spore Crawlers sure can be intimidating, but I really think GunGfu should just go for it and he should just fight. Because this Protoss army is quite a bit better than the Zerg army.
Oh.
First hatchery falls. What is it?
DTs, Kev, DTs, no Overseer. These Ultras are going to get very cleaned up here on the right side for GunGfu. And now, dealing with this army, this is how you need to do it. Elazer, nice abducts by him, getting 2, maybe, carriers here. Oh.
It's kind of nice, but he also lost one of his Spires now, and GunGfu finally realizing that a couple of units have been abducted. I don't think you want to recall too early. I like what he's doing. He's just running away from the Spore Crawlers. The only issue is it does make it very easy for the Vipers to get additional abducts out, and I think now we are going to recall after killing both Spires. I think overall pretty good attack, because we killed the hatchery on the left, we completely devastated the natural, and while this was taking place, the Dark Templars did keep him safe at home. I'm okay with it for GunGfu, but I felt he could have done even better.
I think so as well. I think the nice thing for GunGfu is the fact that he did lose quite a lot of probes. because now he's down to 66, which is still a damn healthy number to be at. But now he can really pack in a real powerful army because he knows what he's up against. And if he just keeps on making carries at this point and gets like the ground units, like the Archons, just to keep them safe, getting Storm and whatnot, that army is going to look very scary in a couple of minutes.
I'm happy for Elazer that they didn't do the Zerg thing where sometimes they go up to Lair and then Hive in their natural. Because if that would have happened, he would have lost his entire attack and that would have really sucked. Because he only has a single Viper on the map. I find that crazy. Like, we do have 4 Infestors. Neural Parasite is done. So maybe we can neural a couple of the important Protoss units. But I'm still favoring GungFu's army as long as GungFu puts it to use.
Yeah, I mean... Oh, I don't know what died there. It was maybe an air unit, but yeah. Oh, nice. Nice by Elazer. He's getting the pounce on here and does... Is there no vision? Okay, all the Infestors do die. This is turning real damn sour for Elazer very quickly. He isn't picking apart this army. He's trying to kind of real raw dog it down almost, and oh, it's terrible for him.
Yeah, I don't think it was that good. It looked somewhat promising, but neuraling a couple of Archons, that's not really what you're looking for. He did force a lot of the High Templars to use their energy, and Elazer is buying time, because now at least both Spires finished up. One of them is going to morph into a Greater Spire as this random outpost that you mentioned before. The Ultras are stuck, so they're going to die. I mean, it's the most random thing I've seen today, and it probably will be the most random thing we are going to see today, but it kind of worked.
It was the bait. It was the super bait, actually. That got him, netted him a grand total of 3 Ultra kills, which is pretty damn awesome. But yeah, I think Elazer, when you go up against this army, and maybe this isn't Elazer's strong suit, actually, you have to deal with it with finesse. Like, constantly pick units apart. If you're trying to go at it gung-ho, like all guns blazing, it's going to be very difficult. You see that Elazer, he kind of has... Well, I mean, I don't think this is that efficient. If he can get a few probes, this would be super nice, which he definitely will.
Yeah, solid, right? We're getting 16 probes. GungFu is so upset about it that he started attacking his own pylon. I mean, that's another little victory there for Elazer. Most important thing, I think, for our Zerg is that now at least the Spires have finished up. One of them is morphing into a Greater Spire again, so we can start catching up in those upgrades. And once more, I am surprised that GungFu is so terrified of an army of like 12 to 14 Corruptors, and a lot of them were already bruised and injured from some of the Storms and the Archon hits. It's like, yeah, it's a lot of Queens, Ben, but I don't think that +3 carriers and Void Rays need to be too intimidated about Queens.
No, they definitely don't. That is so many Broodlords coming onto the field. Like, the ground army isn't super scary, I guess. How do you feel about the composition of Elazer in general, actually?
I think it can work if GungFu fights literally next to 22 Spore Crawlers, which is the amount of Spore Crawlers that Elazer currently has on the map. The Broodlords are pretty awesome in keeping the High Templars at bay, but I think that it's only really useful if the Corruptor count is then high enough to win the fight against the air units. And maybe we are starting to get there. Now we've got 20 Corruptors against 8 Carriers and 4 Void Rays. So maybe it's possible, but I still like it a little more for GungFu, that's for sure.
I like how Elazer's positioning himself, by the way. He's got the Queens in the Spore Crawler fields, and GungFu, I think this is kind of problematic fighting in this, but who am I to talk? The Corruptors, the big Storms land on all of them, but the army of Elazer, the Storms have run out, Kevin, and wow, nice fight by Elazer.
Yep, I lost a lot of Queens, but eventually the carrier count started to dwindle. Well, mostly the intercept count, and then in the end 1 or 2 carriers did go down, and all the Void Rays did go down against the Spores and the Queens. So it kind of worked out for Elazer, and he finally gets the fight that he was dreaming of. It felt indeed a little bit stubborn for GungFu to fight exactly there where we had all the Spores. He leaves a carrier behind now too on the top right side, so then one more carrier bites the dust. And this is really starting to hurt. Because the downside of carriers is that the build time is quite long. Even if you have Chrono Boost available, you can't just be losing them like this.
No, you definitely can't. And it feels like Elazer's running away with this game. And as much as I've kind of discredited Elazer's late game, I love the way he handled this, man. Those Queens in that Spore Crawler field really slowed things down on the left side of the map. And this army is so damn hard to stop for a Protoss army, especially when he just keeps catching him out of position.
GungFu is going to try to buy some time with the 5-6 Immortals and a couple Zealots on the bottom side. But Zerglings are going to be very problematic to deal with. Once the Zealots have gone down, and the Zealots did go down, we can't recall, because we have already recalled in the previous fight to save a couple of the carriers. So GungFu's supply is now dropping rapidly, and that Corrupt account that was quite underwhelming for a while, it's at 23 at this point. And I think that's more than enough to start maybe looking for some abducts again and just gun those air units down one by one.
Yeah, I love it. And now Elazer's handling it with finesse as well. He's doing what Vipers are made to do, swapping out for bigger units pretty much and keeping most of them alive. And yeah, he's just played a really good game overall. I was worried for him, but Elazer showcased that he can play the late game, and he did it very well.
I was worried too, but in the end it seems like it's going to be a convincing victory even for Elazer after a massive fight near all the spores and the queens. I do think that GungFu missed a few opportunities, and GungFu is going to try to create some chaos by sort of switching back into ground and winning some fights with the Zealots and the Dark Templars on the bottom side of the map. But guess what? There are still a million Broodlords to worry about. So even if the Zealots and DTs find damage, you're not going to clean up those brutes. GG. Elazer wins a 21-minute game on Jagannatha. But Ben, I have to admit, these are the games that make me mold a little bit. GungFu had such a powerful army, he's got great upgrades. He could fight against 12, 13 Corruptors, a lot of them already in the orange or even in the yellow when it came to the HP. Instead, we waited until the Corruptor count was plus 20, plus 2 armor is done for the Corruptors, and then we take a fight near 12, 14 Spore Crawlers and all the Queens. Like, I don't get it.
It is easy for us to be like, we don't get it, but it's also, if we ask GungFu, like, why? He'd probably also be like, I don't know, just just wanted some upgrades kind of thing. And I know it's scary, like every time you do kind of poke with your voids, you see like 10 plus queens on the field, and then all of a sudden the next wave is happening, like the Spore Crawlers. But yeah, I think GungFu needed to be a little bit more shameless with like just attacking, because like you've got nothing to lose. Like your army, you can always retreat. Like you have so many voids that you can run away from a fight kind of thing. The carriers as well, like they can also get away because it's only the queens that are really defending against the air for a long time there. Definitely a few little chinks in the chain almost, like kinks in the chain even. Like it's definitely problematic for him, but I don't think he played bad at all. I just think overall it didn't line up properly.
I think GungFu did a lot of things right, and I think he got himself in a pretty damn sweet spot. Sure, Elazer was also able to do whatever the hell he wanted, and in the early game created a massive lead because the super quick carrier opening, that definitely didn't get GungFu ahead. But at one point, I just liked his army more. And it's funny how whenever like Marines have +3 against Marines that have +1, we're like, well, this is it. You can't win these fights. All you have to do is just fight with your well-upgraded Marines. Air upgrades are just as important, Ben, especially for carriers because they've got all those tiny interceptors. They attack twice. It is such a big difference to fight Corruptors with +1 armor or +2 or +3. And if you have a 2 upgrade advantage, you gotta fight. You gotta believe.
You certainly do. You certainly do. Spawning over in the top right-hand side of 2000 Atmosphere, it is GunGFuBanDa.
And in the bottom left side, we're looking at the main base of the Polish Zerg, was taking a 1-0 lead after a 21-minute game. So not the aggression we expected, but solid late game in the end. It is Ego Esports, the Elazer.
Elazer's comment, in fact, here's one of the most memorable comments for me when he talked about how he's going to go back to macro. And he just kept on all-inning, and it was like resulting out very well for him. And it's like, yeah, macroing, it's going really well for me. And it just was nothing but. I'll never forget. But the thing is, like, and we talked about this before, Elazer is actually a very capable player of playing pretty much everything there is. Like, I don't know what his strengths are right now or his weaknesses, but that game just showcased to me that he's obviously very solid.
Mm-hmm. I'd love to see him in a similar spot against some of the other products. Like we know that Showtime, for instance, is absolute master of the late game. I've seen Neep play some marvelous. It's almost a shame sometimes that they tuck Neep into that NA region. You know, can one of these beautiful European ladies or men just marry Neep already? Get him into Europe, because I want to see him duke it out with all the other Europeans. It'd be so fun to see Neep play some proper late game against some of the Euro Zergs. Maybe at the season finals, man.
Maybe. I mean, we've got a new fresh Protoss to look at in MaxFax to see how he dukes out in the late game. He's got a very peculiar style. Some of the games that I've seen where he goes into like the Colossus Mass Stalker stuff against Zerg. I'm not sure if it's the greatest, but he has a whole array of weird strats up his belt that I love seeing that kid. Anyhow, this game, we are seeing something very different from GunGFu in Twilight Council on this map. How do you feel about this one?
I mean, I don't hate the Twilights, even though the Stargates are a bit safer, but Elazer, we already mentioned in the previous game, not particularly known for his Overlord scouting early on. And I've seen Elazer actually lose a couple of very silly games against Protoss players in, for instance, the European Pro Tour Weekly. Now, I know that's a little bit less important than a big DreamHack best of 3. I mean, to put things in perspective, man, you need to make it to the final to win $100 on the Monday night. You just need to win one best of 3 in this tournament to win $100. But yeah, I just hope that Elazer is actually well aware of it, because if he doesn't drop an early Roach Warren or he's a bit too stubborn, well, these adepts can definitely deal a devastating amount of damage.
They certainly can. Elazer, though, you know when you live a life of not scouting, it's about what you don't see, right? Like, maybe he doesn't see X, Y, or Z. Maybe just seeing the Stalker now reveals that it's something else, because you don't need the Stalker if you're doing the Void Ray stuff, aka the Stargate. So just seeing these little bits of information for Elazer absolutely can give certain things away. I say that as he's building a Spore Crawler, but maybe in his head he's like, okay, seeing a Stalker, this could also be like a DT opening or something like that.
Absolutely. And we quite often see adepts into Dark Templar, so having a Spore early on, not the end of the world. Now, of course, if you want to be super optimal, you don't want to build a Spore Crawler until you truly need a Spore, but it's not like he's building 3 Spore Crawlers. It's a single Spore at the third that could potentially help him, and there is indeed that Dark Shrine as the follow-up. Now, 1 Spore may not necessarily be enough. We'll just see if Elazer can get his roaches out in time. Since he's stopping at 40 drones, man, I'm starting to have a pretty good feeling about this. It would have been a lot worse if Elazer would have just skyrocketed up to 55 drones. Then he'd be in trouble.
Yeah, I think he's actually read the situation very well thus far. The Roach Warren, it's going to be pretty damn well timed here. These 5 roaches are starting now. Gets to the Ling on the tower, gets to see what's being warped in as well. Elazer knows everything that's going on. It is problematic that he lost quite a few Lings already, but they're almost made to die at this point in time.
GunGFu doesn't, of course, know what we know, and that is that Elazer's already been building his first set of roaches. So if GunGFu makes a wild shade and the adepts end up on top of the roaches, that could be the end of his little push real quick. Still just doing this off 2 bases. Not necessarily all in, guys. We can definitely transition out of this. But we are starting to find ourselves in a situation where these adepts, they need to deal some damage. He cancels the shade, and I think that's a good decision with the amount of Zerglings and roaches that we're waiting for those adepts.
We are getting to that stage, though, where the DTs are being warped in now. Spore Crawlers are being made now. One in the main. The natural is totally free. But the one place that he has a Spore is the third. But this is the one place that the DTs are not going. But, Elazer, I think he spotted it. I think he's seen the blur.
Yep, and GunGFu obviously doesn't know what we know. He didn't know there were no Spore Crawlers yet in the natural. So instead he's going to pick up the Dark Templars, drop them in the main. But guess what? In the main we did have a Spore. So Elazer definitely dodging a bullet there. Oh, that's unfortunate for GunGFu, because if he would have been, in a way, less good, he would have just walked his Dark Templars into the natural. And guess what, man? He would have found a lot of damage. But because he is good, and he's like, I can't really afford to lose these DTs. And he already saw the shimmer, so he's getting ready for it. I should probably play it safe and save my Dark Templars. He actually missed out on an opportunity to deal a lot of damage.
I like the play from both of them there. Like, they both were respecting the other one, right? Like, Elazer throwing down 2 spores behind his natural, being like, okay, I'm going to try and block the ramp and stuff so the DTs can't get up into my main. Like, and GunGFu just respecting his opponent through and through there. Definitely bit him in the butt a little bit, and he wanted to deal more damage than he did with this for sure. but it's not over yet. This is a little bit of an old school opening now with the Archon dropper as a follow-up.
Yeah. No, it's honestly not that bad for GunGfu. We've got Disruptors on the way, Ben. There is not a single lair tech unit out. Roach speed isn't even done. Now, normally, if you would ask any Protoss, would you like to have Disruptors out on the field against this Zerg that literally only has a spawning pool and a Roach Warren? They'll say, yes, please. Can I be on 3 bases? Yes, sir, you can. Well, that's an amazing spot for Protoss in general to be in. But of course, Elazer does have some freedom now, so he can also start getting a superior economy out and maybe find himself in a position where we can flank the Protoss army eventually, something along those lines.
Yeah, I'm looking at these supplies, and very often you find Zerg at, a bit further ahead than they are. This is a very small army to be moving out with. Like, I am a bit worried for him with this one. But maybe he's just...
Double spore. Sorry, Ben. Oh, that Warp Prism took a lot of damage.
Yeah, I mean, well, how often do you run into double spore right there and then? Like, that was... That worked out very well for Elazer. Elazer already at 200 supply, still making overlords. Would not be a laser game without that being seen. Oh.
Yeah, I just noticed that. Decent Nova there, connecting with quite a few Zerglings. See Elazer, I mean, making this many basic units, man, of 71 drones. Obviously, we do drop an infestation pad. We are going up to 4 bases. I think the scariest thing in this game right now, if I was GunGfu, right, looking at it from his point of view, I'd be so damn worried there's a Spire out. Because you obviously don't have a Stargate, so you can't build Phoenixes as an immediate response. And there we can already see a couple of extra cannons go up. Well, that's more to maybe deal with Zergling run-bys or Baneling run-bys. But he hasn't properly scouted the potential attack of Elazer in quite some time.
This is like they're both just doing something, and it's going to pan out however it's going to pan out, because neither one of them has... Well, I mean, obviously the Lings have scouted a little bit, but it really feels like we're just seeing two forces collide, regardless of what they're going to go up against, right? And I mean, GunGFu's army, the 2 disruptors, they can really make magic happen. But I do like this, just poking out, like he's setting up a 4th like this, just keeping his opponent honest, honestly.
Yep, but I would like to see GunGfu scout a little more, because I feel that if he gets a better idea of what he's up against, now he saw all the Banelings. That's a big moment there for GunGfu, because now he knows it's Roaches, Ravages, and Banelings, which makes a Spire a little bit less likely. And then, you know, the time is kind of on your side, because what is Elazer going to do? Run into your army of Immortals, Archons, potential Force Fields, and Disruptors off creep? That's probably not going to happen. So yeah, why not just sit back and let this 4-base economy going?
Yeah, and GunGfu is just teching up once again. He's very comfortable with sitting back, more than most Protossers, I guess, or at least going about it in a very unorthodox way. But I like it because it's like, how do you break GunGfu? He's got 30 supply to spend on just super good units, a bigger army right now, and he's looking to be aggressive on 2 sides of the map. In fact, he's fighting in 3 spots right now.
Yep, bottom right side Zealots. We've got a couple of Adepts trying to make their way into the natural. Well, those Adepts are going to get obliterated by the Lings and Roaches. Oh no, the War Prism has to move in the bottom right. It does not move. So the War Prism goes down to Corrosive Ball. And 3 or 4 Zealots that were either in the War Prism or standing right underneath it fall too. Sometimes, man, people get a little ahead of themselves, right? And this is GunGfu like, oh, I'm Clem. And it's like, we're not all Clem. Maybe we should focus on our main army and then set up one little run-by. Let's start with one run-by, you know?
I love the fact that you bring up that, like, when a Protoss player thinks he's Clem and, like, everything just goes wrong. Because that is literally how it can go, you know? Stargate starts up at this point in time. Would you say that's for tagging or... eventually to switch to maybe carriers? By the way, that is a lot of Banelings that have gone totally unnoticed.
Yep, we do have a couple of cannons and batteries on the top side, but this is still quite a few Banes. The Banelings don't have +2, but this many Banelings can still find quite some damage against all these probes. Whoa, a lot of probes actually clumped up there. Fortunately, one wave of probes did survive it. The army's getting awfully close to the bottom right side. There's a lot of Banelings that go obliterated there, but I still think GunGfu needs to be a little bit careful. I like his army, Ben, but on creep, there is a chance that this goes very wrong for him.
He can get very overwhelmed because how many Banes are on the field? 38, more producing as well. How many force fields does he have left? That is so many Banes, but they are managing to squeeze their way through, busting into that army. I mean, it does survive, the Protoss army that is, but Man, he's launching these disruptor shots from very bad angles.
Yep, is the War Prism gonna go down again? The answer is yes, but we still have some storms available. There are still a couple of Zealots to potentially protect these Immortals too. We need some storms on the right side though. GunGFu, there you go. Those are the storms that he was looking for to soften up those roaches. A bailing run by taking place during all of this as well. This game is just chaos. The Zealots are doing great on the left side, but GunGFu did lose all his high-tech robo units.
Yeah, I think all things said and done, I like Elazer's situation better, I think, purely because he actually did some counter-economic damage himself, which, amidst all this chaos, very nicely done by Elazer.
Yep, not once, but twice, right? Obviously, the first set of Banelings did quite a bit of damage. I believe 10 probes went down. And then while these big fights took place, he found some more damage. And the biggest problem for GunGFuBan is that he was producing his entire army of a single robo. Well, if you lose 4 Immortals, 2 Disruptors, and a War Prism, do you know how long it takes to get all of that back from a single robo? And that means that you're kind of stuck on like Zealots and Archons now. And that's not going to cut it forever against Roaches and Ravages and Banes.
I know a lot of people, including myself, I was like, why did GunGFu attack right where he did? Well, Elazer isn't super all in with this composition at all. We do see that he's actually got a Great Aspire like halfway done here. So GunGFu kind of planted himself on a little bit of a clock, given that his army wasn't that good against air. And here, Elazer, you know, he's just making work out of this. He's got so much Roach Ravager Bane here.
Yep, and GunGFu really doesn't have too much to work with. The High Templars didn't have Storm. We do get a battery overcharge, but the battery dies immediately. 1 Purification Nova! Nope, that one is gonna get picked off too. And just like that, it will be